Hi again, this is the last video for the SNS kit number 2, Make a CHOOK sculpture. So what I'm going to do is show you some mosaic tips and tricks. Before I do that, I'm going to show you how to cover your polystyrene eggs with the SNS. Normally when we work with polystyrene shapes, and we do cover it with a cement-based product, we cover it with fiberglass mesh. For these small shapes, it's not necessarily when you use SNS. So I mixed up this SNS about an hour ago, so it's nice and firm. It's more like a modelling medium now. So I can just take it and put it on the eggs and actually just press it round in wads like that. It's so much fun. So I can just put it on with my gloved hands. Don't forget to wear gloves. Might be easier for you to do just half at a time rather than wrapping the whole egg like I am now, because obviously if you do one side, let it cure maybe just overnight even, and then do the other side, it'll be easier rather than trying to put it all on in one hit. So probably about 1 centimetre in thickness around the polystyrene shape will give you a good coverage. So once you've got it on roughly, just set it aside on a piece of plastic. Give it about half an hour to an hour, and then you can come back to it and you can pat it with your gloved fingers and just smooth it off, and you'll have a nice egg shape ready to do your mosaics on, so you can match it with your CHOOK. I love this idea of making eggs to match your CHOOK. So if you end up making a few CHOOKs and you have like matching eggs, and if you have little people in your life, children or grandchildren or just little friends that come over to play or to say hello, you can take them out to the CHOOKs and they can match the eggs to the CHOOKs. So that can be a lot of fun. So I'm just going to put this egg out of the way and take off these gloves, and then we'll get on with the mosaic methods. Now with mosaic methods, of course, I'm going to wear safety glasses with eye shields, and also if we're going to be cutting ceramic pieces, we do need to wear a mask because ceramic dust is also bad for you. Okay, now before we get on to the cutting, I will just explain with your CHOOK sculpture, it's really up to you how you embellish it with your mosaics. Covering a sculpture with mosaic is similar to doing a flat 2D mosaic, but it does have curves and bumps and lumps, so you really have to work with that shape. And when you cover it with your mosaics, I like to think of it as a mosaic skin, so it's wrapping itself around your sculpture and turning it into that beautiful shiny object where light catches on the different mosaic pieces, and it will become a wonderful work of art. So this is where you can really use your own mosaic flair and your ideas and all the materials that you collect to do whatever you want, really. So anything goes, except the only rule you have to remember is that if you're going to do it, if you're going to put your CHOOK sculpture outside, then any of the mosaic pieces that you put on it need to be suitable for outside as well. So don't go putting like plastic beads or anything like that out on your sculpture if you're going to display it outside, because they will corrode over time. So bling and things like that will look awesome, but again, probably inside. So for outside, just make sure you use anything that's durable for the dishwasher basically, and that should be okay. So glass or china or tiles, that sort of thing. Same goes with your adhesive. If it's indoors, doesn't really matter. As long as it sticks, it should be fine. If you're going to put it outdoors, then of course you need to use an exterior grade glue. Okay? So we do have a couple of glues at Artopia available on the website. We've got Pret Multi-Adhesive, which is a clear glue. So if you are going to do bling and things like that, that is the perfect glue for you to use. It's really great. I love this glue. It does say it's suitable for outdoors. I haven't done the test of time yet with outdoors, but it is great for bling and jewellery and things like that. So that's a really good option. But really, you can just use your favourite glues. For outdoors, our S&S sculpted stick medium is a fantastic exterior tile glue, so you can use it, what's in your kit, for your sculpting, and also if you've got any leftover powder, you can mix it up and use that as your exterior adhesive as well. And like I showed you in the previous video, you can add our tints to colour it if you want to use a coloured adhesive, which saves you a bit of grouting, or you can just use it white and, you know, that just as your regular tile glue. So just make sure that you're getting it for the right place, indoor or outdoor. Okay, so now I'm going to show you a few of the different cuts for what I did with my chook. So first of all, I'm going to show you how I did the feathers, because that's a really interesting cut. I mean, most of you who've done mosaics before are probably familiar with your regular mosaic cut, where you take your nippers, either a tile nipper or a wheel nipper. Wheel nippers we use for glass, but I prefer the wheel nippers for china as well. They do give a better, crisper cut. We do have some pairs available at Artopia for $35, so you can check those out, the website. They're not the best higher end of the mosaic wheel cutters, but they're great for china. So your regular cut is you put your mosaic wheels in like that and squeeze, and it will cut it in half. But for these feather cuts, it's a bit different. What you do is you put your mosaic cutter on the side like this, which is a little bit different, isn't it? And you squeeze like that. Then you will get a peak. So you put it in again over that peak on the side and clip, and you get that shape. Then you put it in again on the next peak, and you get that shape. And all these shapes together they fit together. I've got some that I pre-cut before, and you can see how they fit together like that. They're awesome, especially for feathers or scales or anything like that. So, you know, I really love that cut. I use that cut quite a lot. So you can see I've used it on the wing, and I've used it on the rest of the bird as well. Just turn it around. I'll show you. I drew my wing shape first, so I could see where these will be going. Use my S&S that I've got ready mixed here as my adhesive. And see how it's curved? See how some of these pieces are curved? Use the curve on the piece to hug the sculpture. And that's where it's a little bit different from your regular 2D mosaic work, because you do need to have a look at the pieces and the way they curl and curve, and use that so it moves with your sculpture shape. So you can see how I would continue to build my wing like that. For the body, I did exactly the same cut. I used this beautiful broken platter which one of my students, Sue, gave me, and she'd hand painted this a long time ago, and unfortunately it broke. She gave it to me. Wasn't I lucky? So I used this. That's how I managed to get all these lovely different colours in there. I did that feather cut again, and I did the same thing, moving with the flow of the bird. So that's important, that the feathers go in the direction of the bird. That's called andamento in the mosaic language. It's a Latin term. It means flow. So you wouldn't want to put the feathers going across that way, would you? Because it wouldn't really flow with the sculpture. The head, I used a finer cup, and you can see how curved these pieces are. I can't show you that cup because it's been all used up, but it was something like this, and I used the curve of the pieces to get around that narrow curved shape, and that looked quite effective because it went down. The andamento's going down here. Alright, so what I'll do now is I'll show you how I did this cup handle, because I know a lot of people ask me in my classes, how do you get a cup handle? Cup handles are so much fun. They're a little bit hit and miss, but you know, I've used it here. Initially I thought I might use these pieces as the comb. I quite fancied these. They're a little bit more showy, and I was going to embed them like that. But, you know, with all the op shops being closed during our Melbourne lockdown, I couldn't find things that matched together. So I ended up going with that, which is probably a little bit smaller than what I imagined, a little bit more of a showy comb. But people seem to like it. I've had good feedback. I'll show you how to cut a cup handle, because this is useful for the chook, but you could also use it for other things, ears and all sorts of things. What I do is I get the cup. And this is a beautiful cup, but it does have some cracks in it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be cutting it up because it's Royal Albert. But sometimes you've just got to go for it. I tend to hoard these things for a long time. You put your wheel nipper in close to the handle, but not too close at this stage. My aim here is to try and cut the cup in half. So if I squeeze, I kind of hold onto it. I don't know if holding onto it helps, but it helps me psychologically. And then I squeeze, and we'll see what happens. Ah, there you go, perfect. Doesn't always work like that first time. That was, I did have another cup here in the wings, just in case that didn't work. Because sometimes it does cut, and it's, you know, in half, and you don't get the handle out in one piece. Then you go to the other side and you start taking away, but you never point it towards that piece you're trying to get out. You point it away. And that was a lucky strike as well. And then just slowly nibbling towards it. Sometimes you can be lucky, sometimes you can be unlucky. And of course, practice makes perfect. Getting a feel for the way China moves, which is a little bit unpredictable. Now I've got it down to a base level there. I think on that one, actually, this did come away. But I like it like that. If I go any further, it's probably going to break. I'll leave that on there for my next chook. If I wanted to use that, I would probably embed that like that. See, I could bury that piece of ceramic. You wouldn't even see it, or I could use it as part of my mosaics. Okay. Whoops. So that's how you do a cup handle. And now this and this, I used Sue's platter. It did have bendy corners, so I cut those bendy corners off. But basically I just did this. Get sort of the length you want first. Don't try and do this because it will just go off. Always cut the length first, and then take off that and nibble down to what you want. And I was thinking of this as a useful thing, all right? So you can do things with the edges. I've already used the curvy bits, but you'll have to look for some sort of curved things. And like I said before, I'd found this. This is interesting. I'm going to try and work with that now, make a beak. Let's just see what happens. It's all a matter of experimenting and just being brave and just going for it. The worst thing that can happen is it breaks apart. You can either just use it as in a regular mosaic, or just say wah wah. But sometimes it's just worth giving it a go. Yeah, that's an interesting, that would be an interesting little beak, wouldn't it? I should have got the sculpture without the beak to show you, but we'll make him a genetically modified chicken with 2 beaks. How about that? You can see how that might have been a good beak. Okay, so just use your imagination. Really study your kitchen cupboards. You might find something in your kitchen cupboard that you don't use. Okay, so now let's get on to the tail feathers, which you know, are a little bit more challenging to cut. Well, he's getting a bit unbalanced there for some reason. So first of all, if you've got a whole plate, like I did with the cup, you just put your wheel nipper in and squeeze. I don't have a whole plate to demonstrate with here, but I'll just break this down to a little bit shorter, because that's a little bit ambitious. If you're cutting by hand, you'd have to do that length by machine. So just put it in, make sure you're wearing all your protective gear, and squeeze and see what happens. Okay, then what you do is start taking excess off. A little bit at a time, don't go crazy. If you go crazy, you can easily cut it in half. So I'm just nibbling away there, and then I'm turning it over because I get a different angle, and I can start taking more off like that. a little bit at a time. Never put it pointing my nippers. If you draw a line from where your nippers go, you'll see where the cut will happen, straight in half. So always sort of keeping it away, turning it over again, taking off bit by bit. So, you know, you've got to be patient. If you rush it, you'll wreck it. A little bit of time, turn it over. A little bit of time. Now, you can see here I'm not working in a plastic bag, which is really bad practice, but I can't because you wouldn't be able to see. So make sure you're working into a plastic bag and that no one's in your line of fire. And sometimes they do go AWOL. So always protect yourself. Make sure your pets aren't around you either, because you don't want a bit of ceramic to go flying their way either. I do have a one-eyed dog. I must clarify he didn't lose his eye from a piece of china, but he could have. So there, that's pretty good, isn't it? And I can keep nibbling, getting a little bit close to that. And you can see it's a little bit raggedy. I can keep going and tidying it up. But the more I go now, the more I'm risking it. That was really good, well-behaved china. It's not always that easy. Sometimes on the back of a plate, you have like this rim thing in the wrong place. And sometimes you just have to give up and say, oh, I don't really think I can make a tail feather out of that one. So try to find things that don't have that really defined ridge right on the edge. Now, if I was going to use that as a tail feather, I would put a nice scoopy point on the end like that. And then I would have to smooth this down. Now, I used my wonderful Dremel, but I'm not going to demonstrate that because I don't want to show you unsafe practices. If you're going to use power tools, you really need to know what you're doing. So make sure you get some help if you don't. You can also put it, use a bench grinder or an angle grinder in a vise and do it that way. Just a tip for when you are grinding with Dremel or grinder, wet your ceramic, okay? It needs to be wet. If it's not wet, there's a whole lot of sparks and dust come out. So you can just spray it even with a water bottle. A little bit of a spray, work it a while, and then spray it again. Okay, make sure you wear mask, glasses on, things like that if you are going to go ahead and use power tools. So you can always ask for help with somebody who is good with power tools to even do that work for you. Because you don't want to display a sculpture with sharp ends. You know, you don't want anyone to injure themselves by touching these things. But, you know, you can see how effective these tail feathers. I might put an extra one in there, look. There you go. Add a piece on, I might add a piece in there later. So, that gives you lots of ideas for your mosaics and how to take your chook sculpture and really make it your own. I'm perfectly happy for you to copy my work. Love people copying my work. It's always a compliment. So copy it away. But, you know, it is fun for you to go hunting for your own china or glass or whatever it is, whatever medium you like using, and really thinking about how you can make your chook your very own. Please send us your finished pictures or even works in progress, because I just love to see what you end up making, and we'll have a whole farmyard of chooks that we can post on our Facebook page. So have fun, do it safely and carefully, and hope you get a great farmyard chook. Bye!